Keep it Azuan, as the Kardashians would say. Welcome to the location I was at when I received a distinct message. Julantru, and welcome to the Star Trek Online Starship review, where before I say anything else, I really must say a massive thank you to Kitchen Witchin. This video literally would not be happening without Kitchen Witchin's giveaway. You see, I've done an overview already of this ship, and I was very positive to negative. And from what I was reading, I could not justify getting the ship. As a result, I resolved myself to simply thinking I wouldn't be getting my hands on her. And as I said, I would not be getting her. But Kitchen Witchin did a giveaway. I entered. And apparently, thanks to the random number generator, I won a ship that has literally cheered me the hell up. Pulling aside how I've been feeling recently, I thought I was going to be waiting until this ship is in Mud's market, or I managed to save enough spare money aside to actually justify buying the ship. But thanks to Kitchen Witchin, today we are aboard the USS Minerva NCC 93618. Why? Because I always like to remember where my ships come from. And as Kitchen Witchin seems to have her own one, which is named the Legacy, if I've read the screenshots right, I thought it was justifiable to use the name of the real world equivalent sister ship, to essentially the flagship of that branch. I think it's the flagship of that branch. The Legacy being the flagship, Minerva being the sister, which is a little bit younger. Guys, no matter what faction you're with, I'm definitely playing nice today, and we can happily say, before I go any further, this ship answers a much needed boon to beam fire at will. So if you guys are out there wanting to boost beam fire at will a little bit more and actually give it a chance to properly come into lines with DPS, I would like to optimistically believe, well, this is actually probably going to end up being one of those ships which are a must acquire. The testing I did for this, if I pull up a testing video, it would be 6 hours long. But I feel it is reasonable to say what I say about its beam fire at will capabilities and what comes from the trait and console. Secondly, before we go any further and adjust the stats, I must mention that the ship we are talking about today, in all of her absolute beauty, considering she is my only other Excelsior that I actually like the look of, outside of the Enterprise B, that form of the Excelsior, we do have to still acknowledge that she is a gambling ship acquired through gambling mechanics. So that is a word of warning to all of you watching. If you feel you have an issue with gambling, please consider seeking help before even considering trying to get this ship. However, that aside, if you do wish to acquire the ship and would like a more guaranteed approach, she is very expensive, but is in the exchange currently around 1.5 bill EC. There are also players that I have noted have been selling it for about 2. You can acquire the EC relatively easily by selling lockbox keys, and the amount of Zen you require in order to do that is going to be around the region of £80 to £100. Yes, when I did the overview, I compared this ship to other ships. There are ships that I would say, combative-wise, are already on her level, and could be considered a better option as they are an account-wide unlock. The legendary Excelsior, for example, and that ship comes with a special bundle itself. You also have the Resolute, but I'm not really going to defend the Resolute. That's too much engineering, way too much. It's disgusting. So yeah, this ship's better than the Resolute by a mile. But there's other ships like the Lexington, and that's a dangerous one. The Lexington definitely outperforms this ship. But I don't think the Lexington is as beautiful. And safe to say, with these stats, she's not a ship to shy away from. And with her trait and console, she's exactly what all of us energy build types who actually really want to use beam fire at will effectively have been waiting for. Halt. Focus. I must pay attention to the stats. Let's actually get on with the stats, shall we? Before I completely lose myself, because this ship has my brain going everywhere. To say I underestimated her is an understatement. Oh, do I feel like deleting my overview video right now? So, we have a tier 6 cruiser. At level 65, her hull is 63,000. Her hull modifier is 1.4. Her shield modifier is 1. With a turn rate of 9, an impulse modifier of 0.16, and an inertia rating of 40. This antimatter warp-core ship has bonus power settings of +10 to weapons and +10 to engines. To top this further, she is a 4-4 weapon layout with a 4-4-3 console layout for tactical, 4 engineering, 3 science. The ship can utilize a cloak and active sensors as being a intel vessel, and as the full suite of cruiser commands: weapon system efficiency, shield frequency modulation, strategic maneuvering, and attract fire. Finally, her bridge officers are, well, 3 lieutenant commanders, 1 tactical, 1 universal, 1 science with miracle worker specialization, and 1 commander with intel specialization. To wrap it up for those interested in Admiralty stats, her Admiralty stats are 20 science, 37 tactical, and a bow chicka wow wow, 69 engineering. What does this do for the ship? Quite a lot, actually. You see, I underestimated you. Perhaps I should admit defeat. 30 points if you get that reference. Now, I knew this ship was going to be a good tank. I knew it going out the bat. All the Excelsiors tend to be. Some of them are so overly engineered towards being a tank, they self-destruct themselves. Looking at you, Resolute. But when I did the overview, I compared this ship to alternates. It would perhaps would be better options than this ship. Yes, the Lexington massively outperforms this ship. But considering what I had to do to find equals, I feel like there is some justification to this ship. Let me put it this way, one of the best equals you can pick to her is the legendary version. Now, of course, the legendary version comes with the benefits of, one, it's account-wide unlocked. It costs bit more than this ship could cost you if you go via my Zen lockbox keys and exchange method. But at the same time, technically, the legendary comes with so much extra that it costs less. Especially if it's on sale. Then you have a simple other factor to it. And this is where I defend the Resolute. When it comes to being a tank, most of the ships that perform as well as it are in the same category as it. Either highly expensive legendaries or are also promo or lockbox ships. And that got me thinking, was I too harsh? I don't know if you think I was too harsh. I do not agree with Cryptic's idea of putting ships like this, with these kind of stats, in anything that doesn't make them account-wide unlock. But, oh dear. Back to talking about it as a tank, although as a shield tank, it's not massively overwhelming and game-breaking shield tank. Of course it's not. It's got a shield modifier of 1 with only 3 science consoles. But you know what it is good at? It's good at regen tanking. Oh, and it's really good at hull tanking. So much so that despite the low score that I would give it as a shield tank, it makes up for it as a hull tank and results in a true, now tested score from me in comparison to the overview of 4.5, maybe 4.7 out of 5. Literally the only reason I'm not giving it 5 is because its shield tankiness suffers and because it's pricey to acquire for people going through standard methods, and that's the only thing stopping it. Then we get on to DPS, and this is really where I underestimated it. See, I was looking at it and went immediately, as a lot of people did, well, it's going to be a good kinetic build. It's, yeah, definitely a good torp and mine layer and such and such. And yeah, it's not specifically strong as a side DPS. In fact, honestly, I would call it relatively weak. It can do it, but again, in the science factor, probably why it's a multi-stat is 20, it suffers, resulting in a side DPS score for me of, guess what? Yes, you literally have already guessed it. 2 out of 5. However, tactical DPS from this ship is amazing. The way I've been utilising the ship, flying it around, and the time I spent testing it, the one thing I can definitely say is that she has a lot of potential, and she's done some amazing things for beam fire at will. See, first of all, I tested my typical that I've been using, beam overload. And yes, we all know it. Let's say it at once. 4-4 isn't the best for beam overload. It's better for beam fire at will and broadside. So what if I told you that what I got from this ship actually surprised me? Let me be straight. If you are going all energy, so no torps, and you take your atypical 4-4 weapon layout and build that as a forward arc build, so dual beams, 2 omnis on back, or 3 if you got that right cryo weapon, 2 turrets on back, you're going to have about 10% more output in damage than you would full single beams or mono beam, whatever you want to call them. Full broadside spec for single beam front, for single beam back. So yes, forward arc does remain the most powerful. if you set that aside, there's something else that starts to play a little card, and it becomes really obvious if you take this ship's trait and pull it on a ship that does benefit beams. A good 5-3 weapon layout, perhaps. And you know what that is? I found that the difference between beam overload and beam fire at will when utilizing the trait of this ship has shrunk. Now I tested that with a beam overload on this ship in both forward and broadside bias, and a beam fire at will in both forward and broadside bias. And I used the same weapons both times. So same type of weapons, just different layout of weapons. This resulted in me coming to this conclusion. If I included its trait into the mix here, which technically you can do as you've got the ship, this ship is actually really powerful for tactical DPS. So what is this long-winded crap coming out my mouth there to say? It's me trying to justify the fact that I'm going to give it a tactical score of 4 out of 5. Because it's a brilliant kinetics build. And it's a dangerous broadside build. And hell, if you want to utilize a forward control arc, which is one of the ones I tested happily. Oh, when I tested the Biol version of that, beam fight will forward biased with a Biol build on this ship is deadly. Though admittedly you might want to drop its console when you do that, because that doesn't overly benefit it. It does, but doesn't. Hard to explain. So we get on to its support capabilities. Where am I going to go with that? Well, look, support benefits from Psi and engineering primarily. Support DPS on this ship is relatively high, and I don't want to overly go into it, but because of the beam fire will benefits, the support DPS category has been vastly improved. You see, there are two types of support DPS. That is simple. You either are ship killers, which basically means you concentrate your firepower around, well, your firepower and your control around the ship that is most dangerous to any of the DPS ships. Essentially, you're trying to make sure that the ship that is going to do the most damage to them is taken out quicker. So that's almost always a beam overload build as well. And yes, Tank's job is kind of the same thing, but does it a different way. The thing with support DPS in that category is you are trying to concentrate all the enemies in as well, so that the DPSs can sit near this threat and just blast everyone. Then you have the support DPS, which is known as, in my books, Chaos Theory. It's a beam fire at will. You're hitting everything. The idea of this support DPS is you're trying to hit as many targets as possible with abilities that will debuff those many targets. Hence, beam fire at will being utilized, and probably alongside something like attack pattern beta. This is just a general debuff build, and is basically, you could call that one as just a straight support, because the damage output up to now has never been that high from those ones. Except thanks to the new trait and the way this ship performs, actually you can now put that one properly into the category of support DPS. Support tank from this ship again benefits from the new trait and the console, meaning that you can sufficiently help stand next to the tank, generate threat yourself, endure yourself, but you are not the primary tank. You're just generating that little bit of threat to occasionally take damage away from the tank. Bearing in mind that is a difficult calculation, you do not want to overdo that. So maybe this trait is a miss there. But only because you generate too much threat, the tank no longer does its job. Bearing in mind that you also want to be utilising the right traits and that so you can heal the tank. Other side of things. Straight support, as far as drain and control goes, that's where this ship begins to really weaken. Overall, resulting in me, as much as I like this ship support-wise, and it is a support-style build I'm using, I have to be honest with you guys, and just acknowledge that I will not be giving this ship a high support score. Again, that score drops and ends up as its overall score being 2.5 out of 5. You see, as much as it can do the DPS side of support relatively good, it severely struggles when it comes to actually doing control or drain in any high efficiency. It can do it, but if you're sacrificing your X console for that, I don't like it. As a result, my overall score for this ship stats-wise is, you can probably guess where it's going, 4 out of 5. If I could justify this console support capabilities a bit better, maybe I should have tested support a bit harder considering it's my specialty, it would have received a 4.5, but again, it's a pricey ship to get, it kind of kicks it down. So from there, let's get to the things I'm really positive, the real, in my opinion, STO game changers. I'm being optimistic about this, but from what I've tested, it's a fair optimism to have. So here she is, and this is one of my debuff build types. So it's utilising the same sort of damage output, and I am utilising the trait with this ship, but I'm utilising pulse phases for that damage resistance and the 2 self damage resistance buff, while 2 enemies damage resistance debuff. Believe it or not, that comes really in handy if you're a tank. But it's pretty good for support DPS too. Mostly because you tend to be a glass cannon. Yeah, that's not good. But no, other builds that I've utilised on this, just to give a rough idea. Can you tell? Broadside type, forward type. That would be the B-FAW one. Not quite the same, but went for a similar protocol. I actually still kept the console on it. And that was mostly because of the increased energy damage and the weapon amplification. Believe it or not, really did come in handy with that B-FAW and the B-FAW refraction. This resulted in quite the deadly DPS output from this vessel, considering I am very inefficient with anti-protons. I am actually considering transferring this beam fight wheel build I'm currently utilising to one of my best DPS vessels, just to see if it's better than its current beam overload. That will be interesting. But no. With that being said, let's actually discuss this bleedingly nice console. The Universal Experimental Experimental Power Redirection, with a plus 16.9 increase of energy damage and a plus 13.3 to Starship weapon amplifications, improves critical hit severity. With weapons, well, that's a relatively decent buff for us energy users, at least. As well as that power, overwhelming area beam attack. 2 self for 15 seconds, you get a 60% energy weapon damage scaling from engines, shields, and auxiliary. Now, when I was doing those hours of testing, one of the things I tested was exactly how does that scale. Is it efficient to have engines and shields at minimum while having auxiliary at maximum, for example? You want to know what I found? If you have a balance of engine, shields and aux, you would think that that's going to be about the same as, say, if you went shields and engines and aux at min. It turns out it doesn't quite scale like that. You see, that's 60% is based on how close it is to full power. The closer it is to full power, the more efficient that 60% is, from what I can figure. So it's actually better to have one of the two powers really low and let the other two, be moderate or almost full. To show what I'm doing. And with the correct energy boosting that's going on, I get most of that energy back on engines. And it does account for where the the engine power is. So it isn't, well, your power's down at 15, so you've only got 15. Your power's set to 60, so you've only got 60. No, it does account for the fact that my engine output right now is 56. And that results in this console's 60% efficiency, really easy to acquire, and very effective. Because when you have got this console at its full strength, swapping randomly between beam overload free and beam fire at will free is insane. Oh, and this console does trigger with bridge officer abilities. Meaning, if you are currently using beam overload, and this triggers into beam fire at will, you will be using fire at will overload. That was entertaining to me. That was very entertaining to me. There is also the each second applies an auxiliary phaser beam, which is an overload at will. So exactly what I was just talking about. To random 4 targets and deals 758.9 phaser damage to each. And kills increase the number by up to 14 times. So if you accidentally kill while using this ability, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be doing this, but if you kill while this console is active, the number of auxiliary beams increases. I like it. I like it a lot. Now, is there better consoles to put in its place? Obviously. Quite actively speaking, quite easily. Considering this is only increasing energy damage. And the type of damage it is, it's not the best place to have it. But that weapon amplification does benefit for critical hit. And if you are already using a beam fire at will build, then this console is really always at full effectiveness. If you're using a beam overload build, then this console is less effective. And that is where I have a great positivity towards it, because it's benefiting beam fire at will. But because it doesn't benefit beam overload as much, I have to be a little bit negative there. But not overly. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. The only thing that would make this better for me is for it to benefit beam overload as much as it benefits beam fire at will. The real negative to this, though, well, actually I should probably say 3 out of 5, because again, this is on a very expensive, not account unlocked ship. And if I'm fair, that would make it 3 out of 5. But I'm in a positive mood, so bite me. As for its traits, sorry, but upon activating Fire at Will or an Intel Bridge Officer ability for 15 seconds with a 10-second recharge, you get a plus 35 bonus damage and plus 30 damage resistance rating. And if you do not have Threatening Stance active, it's minus 60% threat generating. So what you're telling me is for tanks they get better defense, and for DPSs we get better anti-threat generation. Huh. Does anyone else hear something really nice about that specific trait? When beam fire at will or intelligence bridge officer ability is used. So yes, it's not unilaterally useful, but how hard is it to trigger off an Intel bridge officer ability once per 10 seconds? Can you think of any Intel ships? I'm thinking of one that would greatly benefit from this console. It doesn't have to be beam fire at will. It could be beam overload. So unlike the console, this trait is beautiful. This trait is brilliant for energy DPS builds. And as a result, I'm giving this trait on this ship 4.5 out of 5. And all it needs to be a 5 out of 5 trait from me is for the ship to be account-wide unlock. Because this is the kind of trait I expect to see on a ship that is this hard to get your hands on. A trait that really can make a difference. It's not OP. If STO Cryptic ever nerf this trait, I will be screaming at them with bloody hammers. This trait is beautiful in my opinion. And like I said, it has made a huge difference to beam fire at will. The only thing I should now acknowledge is the fact that when I've tested beam overload versus beam fire at will here, beam fire at will got this trait. Beam overload was utilizing what I would typically use. When I tested this with a beam overload build, well, this could be the only negative. That is because, unfortunately, oh, I don't know how to say this. Beam overload has that much supporting it that beam overload with this trait versus beam overload without this trait isn't too big of a difference. Now I will say that in certain beam overload runs I did, this trait seemed to perform or outperform what I would typically use. But then I don't know if it's because of the trait I chose to replace for this one, for our new calculated broadside, or if it's simply because this trait just outperforms. well, obviously outperforms the trait it replaced, but the scenario itself, I mean, could have been one where this trait would naturally outperform, whereas the other trait would have outperformed calculated broadside in a different scenario. So it's difficult. The thing I have to acknowledge, and what I will be showing you shortly, is where I do my testing. Half the reason it takes so damn long. I mean, I don't just shoot on out into space and go on for random encounters. A lot of my testing is done through Ninth Wall. But while we're at it, let's quickly dock. I've got something else to show you. It's just a quick look. We'll have a quick run over on the customizer, because this is a beautiful ship and I feel it's right to do so. Now, it's using the Sagan hull. I appreciate that. It is a nicely updated hull. It looks really nice. Kind of like the deflector on it. But that got me curious. You can't modify anything, so that's disappointing. It's not in the same breach as the rest of the Excelsior line. If it was, that's the only thing I would modify, would literally be the lower hull to the Enterprise B. Otherwise, I love everything about this ship more. Literally everything more. But that lower hull is not bad. But material-wise, galaxy on it. Oh, it looks beautiful. Defiant. Absolutely gorgeous. Are you noticing it yet? I wonder if anyone's noticed it yet. How about NX? Oh, it seems to have gone away. Sovereign, the one I use on it. Now that should be really noticeable. Anyone noticing it? Look, there it is, and it's gone. There it is, and it's gone. Now the one thing I will state is I love how the grill next to the warp grill has its own special texture that does change as you change the look of the ship, but it doesn't have a guaranteed material. You see, I thought it was taking after the RCS, but if you go to the Galaxy, which is also yellow, it's not. Now it's a coppery colour, or dark, deep bronzy, almost the same colour as this part of the hull, but again with copper. This one, it's got the copper grille, but it's also white. So it's partly RCS and partly not. Like, what? Oh, but you go through this ship, and you go through its looks. It's beautiful. Put the Type 7A hull on it, which I think is very fitting for this ship. And she's absolutely gorgeous. I know there'll be people that will be like, why do you love that so much? Easy. God, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful, and considering the era the ship is apparently in, it seems about right. Then again, Sagan, I like to think of this ship as actually having the Sovereign refit hull, purely because based on the look of it, it is essentially a Sovereign, just with a neck. You flip those Brassard collectors the opposite way around, and you've got almost similar style of Brassard collector. You definitely have similar style of warp grill. It's just probably more refined warp nacelle going on there. The deflector's about right for it. The way the neck is and sloped, well, there's no real neck on a Sovereign, but you know what I'm talking about here. The whole feel of the ship, the only thing that would make it more Sovereign-y is if those pylons were sloped backwards. Change the direction of the pylon to the opposite way. Mirror them, and that would be perfect. Yeah, this feels like a Excelsior got refitted based on Sovereign technology, and this is what was the outcome. And I bloody love the way it looks. You do have many windows for it. Happily now, thanks to all the changes, you can put Vesta on absolutely every one of the legendary holes or the newly updated holes. So whether you pick type Type 8, Type 8B, Type 7, Type 7, all of the legendary hull types, the Sagan. Oh, not the Sagan. I'm disappointed. All of the others, at least, you can put some absolute entertaining colours on them. So, from there, let's take her into action. I've got to show you what she can do. Okay, so let's do this. 4 energy build. Going in for forward biased arc. Let's wipe them out. And this is that same build I was talking about from before, which I can no longer slow down apparently. God damn, that can be a pain in the rear sometimes. Whoops. Have a little bit of fun. The only difficulty about a full forward arc build is you have to be able to keep them in the forward arc, which can be a pain in the rear. Come on, there we go. Get blasting. Sonic will let everything off. Yoink. Oh, I didn't mean to set that off. That's gonna be a problem later. Here we go, have some fun. See what I can trigger off while we're at it, because we're just going to burn them up. Seriously, I really should have just gone with my full broadside on this ship. Oh, fucking Nora. I keep forgetting just how hard this can be to pilot. When you're trying to do a fire at will on a forward arc, you actually want a bit more turn rate than we have here. It's a problem, but not a big one. And here we go. I say it's a problem, not really. Oh, this is going to be overkill now. The last lot of Orions? Yeah, that's going to make this easy. Come on, Madron. Coming with me now. Okay. Right. Here we go. Just let them come. Let them come. And we shall have some fun. This is basically the best possible outcome I could have asked for, really, if I'm honest. Here we go, gotta push it a little bit harder than this. You gotta love it when it gets like this. Okay, pull forward just a little bit. No. Don't you start flying in front of me. I do not care about you behind me. You're a pain in the rear for doing that. No, you fucker. Come here! Come here and get vaporized, you asshole. You had to go behind me, didn't you? No, fucking son of a bitch. Do this. Fucking asshole had to go behind, didn't he? Ruined it, you ruined everything. Fucking hate you. Ah, I shouldn't have known better, just set myself up behind him. Here's some anger. Just a little bit of angry issues from me, don't mind me. We're going to wipe you out as much as I can. Right. Go on, all of you, straight forward. Get over there. Bridge officer cooldown is terrible at the moment. But that's because this isn't really set up to benefit that at all. Because I've dropped other abilities. I need a little bit more balance than that. Yep, let's just use these. Come on. Keep firing. Oh, really? That was... I don't think I've ever had that glitch. So case in point, I'm just gonna say it. Seriously, I am impressed with this ship, and I love this ship. Make it worse to make things worse. It's really, really, really beautiful. Like, literally, all I want to do is change the lower hull. That's it. That's all I want to choose. I want to put the Enterprise B hull on it. Hey, Cryptic, if you want to do another Excelsior, could you possibly consider doing an Enterprise B style hull on this ship? And I would absolutely just fawn over it. I like this ship. I don't know what you thought of its performance there, but for me, considering that was a fire at will build I was using, for it to perform that comfortably, even with me having one little hiccup because the enemy got behind me, which wouldn't have been a problem on the broadside build, because actually it would have gone from beside me to beside me, which is the dangerous part of this ship with a broadside build. I'm just going to say that right now. Yeah. Oh, and on a side note, believe it or not, my harmonic phaser build, which was primarily tested in its broadside configuration, actually outperformed the build that you just saw. And what did I say earlier? Full broadside tends to be 10% weaker than forward bias? Quite a difference there. I've got to say, I want to really recommend this ship to everyone. But the truth of the matter is this. I can't. I straight up can't recommend it to everyone. As far as support players go, honestly guys, if you're a support player like myself, pick up this ship for Space Barbie. That's the really only reason why you'd want to do it. Because it's a beautiful ship. For me, that can be justification enough. In general, for me, that tends to be enough. It's the only reason I was going to get it eventually was because I figured the trait might be good. Underestimated. And, well, I liked the way the ship looked. Damn it, I wish those nacelles was on the Sagan. Seriously? Yeah, I recommend this ship to support players if you like the way it looks. If you are a DPS player, yes. People make a big deal out of DPRM, and you want to get that specific ship because DPRM, or is it with tanks having really damn good consoles or traits? Well, here we go again. This is one of those ships where I am not 100%, but optimistically speaking, I believe that the trait is going to turn out to be one of those where, yeah, you get the ship just because you need the trait and console. For broadside, 100%. To me, it's a must acquire. This ship is the DPRM of beam fire at will, in my opinion. But does that mean I recommend it to every DPS player? Not exactly, because those of you who are in with the meta, well, one, this ship doesn't really... The ship itself might favour you, but the console and trait doesn't, and all things considered, there are ships that do the meta better, if you understand where I'm coming from. So in DPS, this is one where you pick up because you want to challenge yourself with fire at will, or challenge yourself with broadside builds. Tanks, we have ourselves in a very awkward situation, because like I hope I stated, She is in the top 5 of tanks in my opinion. Obviously, I don't specialise in playing as a tank, so maybe I'm overestimating her capabilities. But although she's not really great as a shield tank, I think she dramatically makes up for it as a regenerative hull tank and a hull tank itself. Her threat generation is amazing. She is absolutely frightening when used at full capability, as far as I'm aware, for tanking. I'm putting that down to her 1.4. Maybe if it was 1.5, I'd start pretending she's like immortal, but we'll see. What I will state is this. I do recommend it to tanks, but with the caveat of what tanks do you already have. The main reason I recommend it to tanks is because the trait, again, is going to be very useful to you. The console, not so much, but the ship will itself be very useful to you. So much like, again, with the TOS prototype and DPRM, it's one of those ones where two major elements of it vastly outperform the rest. Now, with that being said, honestly, in my opinion, this is a beautiful and brilliant ship, and I do recommend it to all of you. Just be aware of what you're going after. I am going to have a lot more fun with this ship. Again, Kitchen Witchin, thank you so much. Honestly, I entered your giveaway really not expecting much. I was not optimistic, because in my opinion most people would be foolish to not be trying to get it with it being so beautiful. You gave me a reason to smile. Guys, I hope this video has been informative and useful to you, and hopefully I'll see you all next time. Until then, stay safe. Let me know in the comment sections what you think. A massive thank you to the people clicking on screen right now, whose generosity and support are the backbone of this channel. And live long and prosper. Ciao for now.